So I'd like to call to order the Town of Ayer Select Board meeting for Tuesday, December 1st, 2020. Before we start, I'd like to read the open session remote participation guidelines. Due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, Governor Baker issued an emergency order temporarily suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. Public bodies otherwise governed by the open meeting law are temporarily relieved from the requirement that meetings be held in public places, open and physically accessible to the public, so long as measures are taken to ensure public access to the body's deliberations through adequate alternative means. This meeting will be broadcast live on Channel 8 and on Zoom. The public may participate remotely by following the call-in information at the bottom of the live broadcast screen. For the Zoom meeting information relating to remote participation, please contact Cindy Knox, the IT director at cknox@ayer.ma.us or 978-772-8252 prior to the meeting. If we could please start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic
for which it
stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. There are no announcements this evening. Under the agenda, I did want to make one adjustment, and it was just that when we get down to new business, if we could discuss possibly rescheduling the second meeting for this month. I do have a scheduling conflict. So if we could just add that to the agenda.
Seconded. I'm adding that to the agenda.
Okay, thank you. All right. So with the, I'm sorry. I have to take a vote on that first, right?
It does help.
I think I did something backwards. So okay.
Okay. So, Board Member Livingston, how do you vote on amending the agenda?
Aye.
Okay. Board Member Hood?
Aye.
Okay, and Chair says aye. So the agenda has been amended. Okay. So then first up would be public input. And is there anybody on for public input? Doesn't appear to be so. Okay, so the first item up we have then is a public hearing for the FY21 tax classifications.
And I'll read the hearing notice.
Thank you.
Town of Ayer Select Board public hearing notice. The Ayer Select Board will conduct a public hearing on Tuesday, December 1st, 2020 at 6:05 p.m. via remote participation due to COVID-19 for the town's FY 2021 tax classification. At the public hearing, the Ayer Board of Assessors shall provide all information and data relevant to making the decision on allocating the tax burden, including the fiscal effect on the available alternatives. For call-in information prior to the hearing, please contact atm@ayer.ma.us or 978-772-8220. Advertised November 13th, 2020 and November 20th, 2020 on the Neshoba Valley Voice.
Thank you. Is there anybody on to participate in the public hearing?
That would be the Board of Assessors.
And then, yeah, and then their presentation, correct?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
If I may, I'll introduce Mr. Tom Hogan, the assessing administrator, is joined by the Board of Assessors, the Chairman, John Kilcommons, Mr. Ed Cornelia, I believe are both present, And as we've done in past years, Mr. Chair, we start with the presentation by Mr. Hogan.
Okay.
Oh, thank you, Robert. Good evening, everybody. I hope you had a chance to review the PowerPoint that I was handed out earlier last week. It's essentially the same handout we've been doing for a number of years now. I know it's a veteran board of selectmen, so you're probably going to be a little bit more familiar with the material than otherwise. But I think what I'll do is I'll try to get through the presentation as succinctly as possible. And if you have any questions along the way, just feel free to jump in and ask me. In any event, there it is. The purpose of this public hearing is to record the select board's vote on 4 property tax options, each having the potential to impact Ayer's fiscal year 2021 tax rate. 4 options are the open space discount, the residential exemption, the small commercial exemption, and the residential factor. The first 3 that I mentioned, we've never adopted an Ayer, and the board would advise you not to do so for a number of different reasons. But per statute, we're required to prior to let you know of their availability. And if you do decide to adopt one of the first 3 options, then it's our job to apply it. So what's a little bit different this year is that normally I announce at the conclusion of the hearing, I'm going to pass around a form LA5, which records your vote this evening on each of the 4 classification options. But the rules have changed this year, not because of COVID. They basically changed the rules. If you remember last year, the select board had to log onto the DLS gateway and sign the form LA5. That's no longer required this year. The Board of Assessors is still required to sign through the gateway. The town clerk signs through the gateway. And instead of selectmen signatures on the form, there's a certification that's going to be included from the town clerk, which attests that there was a meeting this evening and that a vote was taken. Again, we got 4 options to talk about. The first 3 I'll get through quickly. The 4th is the residential factor. That's not optional. The purpose of tonight's meeting is really not to set a tax rate. It's essentially to adopt a residential factor so that the tax rate information can go into Boston and the DLS can certify tax rates for us for fiscal year 2021. On page 2, the first option is the open space discount. Before I get going, I say this every year, but it's important to keep in mind with all these options that adoption of any one of the options will not change the amount of property tax that we're going to commit this year. If a group of taxpayers see their property taxes reduced through one of these options, another group will see increases in their tax bills. It's really shifting of the tax burden depending on which option the select board may or may not decide to adopt this evening. Open space discount is an option designed to provide a measure of tax benefit to owners of open space property as sort of an incentive to keep it in a natural and wide open condition. Land excluded from the open space classification is any land that falls under the chapter land statute, chapter 61 forest land, chapter 61A agricultural land, and chapter 61B recreational land. Land under a permanent conservation restriction would be ineligible for an open space discount and land held for the production of income. And annually, the selectmen may adopt up to a 20%, 5% discount of the open space share of the property tax levy. And an application of an open space discount will increase the residential tax rate and create a new lower tax rate for the owners of open space property. We don't have any land specifically designated as open space in the town of Ayer. Most of our vacant land falls under the, the exclusions that I talked about earlier. So even if you adopted one tonight, it would have no impact on our tax rates. Last I checked, there was only a single community that had adopted an open space discount, the town of Bedford. So again, our position, the assessing department's position is we'd advise that you not choose to adopt one this evening. So any questions? Option number 2 on page 3 is the residential exemption. And the residential exemption is intended to provide a measure of tax relief to owner occupants of residential property by shifting the tax burden to other non-qualifying residential property owners. Last time I checked, there were about 14 communities statewide who have adopted a residential exemption. It's applied to every residential property which is the principal residence of a taxpayer. And it's calculated that the residential exemption is a lump sum valuation exemption, and it's based on a percentage of the average residential valuation. So for instance, if your average residential value were $200,000 and you adopted a 10% residential exemption, the actual residential exemption amount for qualifying taxpayers would be $20,000. Properties excluded from receiving the residential exemption are accessory residential land and seasonal homes. Nantucket, Tisbury, and Barnstable all have the residential exemption is a way of shifting the tax burden to people who don't own and occupy their homes. It's not their primary residence. And also excluded would be non-owner occupied residential property, investor-owned property. Boston, Brookline, and Cambridge have all adopted a residential exemption as a way to shift the tax burden from residents to investor owners. Annually at the classification meeting, the selectmen may adopt a discount of up to 35% of the average residential valuation. And application of the residential exemption will decrease taxes on most qualifying properties by shifting the tax burden onto other non-qualifying residential property owners. I say most qualifying properties because there is, in the formula, there is a break point where if a person's home valuation exceeds a certain break point, their taxes will be higher with a residential exemption than they would without a residential exemption. So it has a secondary effect of redistributing the tax income based upon valuation, which is kind of interesting. But in any event, I don't think we're not Cape Cod, and we're not Brookline, Cambridge, or Boston. So the Board of Assessors would advise that you choose not to adopt the residential exemption this evening. Any questions?
No questions.
Thank you. The third classification is the newest one, the small commercial exemption, and this has been adopted by 15 communities statewide, and we talk quite a bit about this every year. The small commercial exemption is intended to provide a measure of property tax relief to some small businesses by increasing taxes on other non-qualifying commercial industrial property owners. So it's really shifting the tax burden within the commercial industrial class. Qualifying properties will realize up to a 10% reduction in taxable valuation. To qualify for this exemption, the property would have to be included on a list that the Board of Assessors receives annually from the Division of Labor and Workforce Development. It's a certified list. The Board of Assessors has limited authority to add small businesses to the post-commitment, but essentially we're sort of bound to the list. And qualifying properties must have an assessed valuation of less than $1 million and an average annual employment of 10 or fewer people. An application of the small commercial exemption will reduce taxes on some properties that house small businesses by increasing taxes on other non-qualifying commercial industrial properties. Again, the selectmen can adopt an exemption of up to 10% of the value of eligible parcels. Application of the small commercial exemption increases the commercial industrial tax rate and also creates a third tax rate for personal property that would be lower. So we'd have 3 tax rates. On the next page, page 5, I'm sorry. I have an additional slide relative to the small commercial exemption that I think we used last year. It just sort of states the pros and cons of this particular exemption. The pros, obviously, it will provide a measure of tax relief to qualifying small businesses. The cons are that it will increase our already high commercial industrial tax rate. The small commercial exemption does not provide broad-based tax benefit to C&I taxpayers, meaning it'll benefit very few taxpayers at the expense of the many. And obviously, property taxes will increase on non-qualifying commercial or industrial properties. And the tax benefit may be realized by the property owner and not the small businesses. That's probably pretty common. The bill goes to the property owner. Depending upon the lease, if the property owner is paying the property taxes, then the benefit would go to the property owner and theoretically not find its way down to the small business person who is leasing space in the building. And last but not least, I think we talked about this the last couple of years. If you did vote to approve small commercial exemption this evening, I don't think infrastructure-wise we're in a position to apply it because it would necessitate a redesign of our property tax bills, probably a change in the programming and all of that. And additionally, because the list is so limited, we would expect to be qualifying people after the bills went out, and that would stress our FY21 overlay account. In the past, we've talked about if the town is serious about adopting this particular exemption, that we should discuss it much earlier than this evening. And if the select board decides that they want to do it, it would give us time to qualify as many businesses prior to billing as possible. Will enable us to get our bills redesigned to reflect a small commercial exemption and our programming changed to accept the new data. So for those reasons, the board would advise that you not adopt a small commercial exemption this year. I'm sorry, it's odd for me being remote like this. Any questions? I usually can look around the table and get a pretty good feel of what you're thinking, but a little more difficult this year, I'm afraid.
No questions, Tom. Thanks.
Thank you.
No questions.
No questions.
On page 6, what I like to do every year, I left it out one year, and a select board member, Luca, was looking for it, so I include it every year. It's basically the valuation percentages over the last 6 years, the residential class of property versus the commercial, industrial, and personal property valuation, which I'll refer to as CIP going forward. And essentially what this shows is the trend over the last 6 years is that the residential percentage of the total valuation pie of the town has been steadily increasing over the last 6 years. And it's increasing due to market appreciation. The residential property market this year especially and it's been this way the last few years, has been very strong. And we've been getting quite a bit of residential new construction over the last 6 years. And what that'll do is the percentages will change. Back in 2016, we were 64.5% residential valuation, and this year we're up to 68%. It's not a huge change, but it's definitely a trend, and it's definitely going to continue past fiscal year 2021. And it's important to keep in mind, because when one class of property grows at a faster rate than another, in this case residential versus CIP, the tax levy itself will shift onto that property tax that the valuation is growing. And what classification allows you to do is shift back that shifting so that you can equalize the bills. So, but again, this is an ongoing trend, and I expect it to continue going forward. On page number 7, I track the levy percentages every year. We have a classified tax rate like 108 other communities in Massachusetts. We do not have a single uniform tax rate for all classes of property. We have a classified rate, which means that the commercial, industrial, and personal property taxpayers will pay more than their full and fair valuation percentage as a percentage of the levy. For example, if in 2021, the select board votes to approve a residential factor based upon a 1.54 shift percentage like they did the previous year, even though commercial industrial taxpayers, 32% of the total valuation of the town, they would assume 49.2% of the tax levy. So they'd assume a higher percentage of the tax levy. And conversely, even though the residential taxpayers were 68% of the total value of the town, they would assume only 50.8% of the tax levy. What's interesting about this, going back to 2016, if you look down at the horizontal axis, excuse me, at the bottom of the page, you can see in 2016 there's a 1.52, 2017 there's a 1.53. That's the commercial industrial shift factor, that 1.52, 1.53, 1.54. I think the last 4 years we've been 1.54. The prior select boards have been very careful about shifting the tax burden onto commercial industrial taxpayers when residential values grow at a faster rate than CIP valuations. And that's why you're seeing the two lines, the red and blue line, coming closer together. And this year, for the first time, actually, even maintaining that same shift percentage, the residential taxpayers for the first time will pay over 50% of the property tax levy. Again, even though they represent 68% of the valuation. Any questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
So just out of curiosity, what would be the impacts if the town of Ayer was to go to a single tax rate?
We would...
like, what would be the pros and cons or something?
Well, the pros and cons, a single tax rate we would have the highest residential tax rate that we're allowed under law, and the lowest commercial and industrial and personal property tax rate that we'd be allowed to have under the law. Hang on. Yeah, if we had I don't mean to jump ahead, but if we had a single or uniform tax rate for FY 21 residential taxpayers are 68% of the total value, they would assume 68% of the tax levy. The current residential rate's 1410. The new rate would be 1894. So you'd have an extremely a sharp increase in the average residential bill. And conversely, if you came all the way down the grid and shifted as much as you could under statute, meaning you'd have the lowest residential tax rate you could possibly have and the highest CIP. And if you did that, obviously it would be very beneficial to residential taxpayers, but catastrophic to commercial, industrial, and personal property taxpayers. So I guess the better answer is the question is, once you start down this road with property tax classification, it's very difficult to go backwards. And my experience, having worked here for a number of years, is the select board, this board and previous boards have been very good and very judicious about their use of that shift factor to ensure that the tax burden is distributed as fairly and equitably as possible on an annual basis. So, that answer your question?
It did. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Are we done with the chart on page 7?
Yes, thanks.
Oh, good. This is where it gets better for me anyway. What I like to do every year at the classification hearing is give the select board and the viewing public an update of what's going on in their evaluation wise. For fiscal year 21, these are FY 21 valuations. The Board of Assessors completed what's called an interim year update of assessed valuations. Cities and towns are, per statute, are required to complete property revaluations once every 5 years now. It used to be 3 years. But in the 4 intervening years, we're also required to demonstrate to the Division of Local Services that we remain in compliance with the market value standard on an annual basis. So with respect to FY 21, by statute, the valuation date is January 1 of 2020, which means calendar year 2019 property sales and market data form the basis of these new valuations. So these are sort of pre-COVID valuations. This is 2019's market. If we don't have a valid sample size of sales in 2019, DLS wants us to go back to 2018 to capture as many sales as possible. Excuse me. In any event, valuations are complete. We're 68% residential, 32% CIP. Total taxable valuation is $1.351 billion. Last year we were $1.301 billion. So the total taxable valuation of the town has increased 4% over the previous year. Our predominant property type, single-family homes, the average single-family valuation has been increased to $367,900. Last year it was $350,200. So there's been a 5.1% increase in the average single-family valuation. Again, the residential home market is really strong. Was strong in 2019, and looking at 2020 sales, which are the basis for next year's valuation, it looks like it's moving even faster. Believe it or not, during COVID, that the the market is definitely booming for residential properties. We didn't do much on commercial industrial value. We had a few 2019 sales in 2018, and we were meeting our statistical requirements. So we didn't move too many of those. And as a result, the median commercial industrial valuation, I use the median because we have $30 million commercial industrial valuations and $1,000 commercial industrial valuations. So I think the median, and for this year anyway, gives us a more stable number. But the median is the same as last year, which in most cases the valuation won't change. Any questions?
No.
No
Thank you.
question.
Myself and my board are obviously in the value business. Our job is to value all property at 100% of its full and fair cash valuation, so that whatever tax levy is determined through the budget process and town meeting is distributed equitably amongst all of our taxpayers. The idea is that by keeping all properties at market valued, taxpayers are assured of paying no more than his or her fair share of the tax burden on an annual basis. So that's sort of the basis of full and fair cash valuation. But on page 9, what I think is important to present to the selectmen every year is sort of a summary of the tax rate. Excuse me, the tax levy. Calculating a tax rate is pretty easy math. You essentially take the tax levy, that is that portion of the budget that's going to be raised through property taxation for this particular tax year, and divide it by the total taxable valuation of the town and multiply it by 1,000. That's your uniform or single tax rate. That would have been the 1894, I think, that I mentioned earlier, in the presentation. I think it's useful to walk through the process of how the tax levy is determined, so that the select board and the people at home have a pretty good understanding of what's going on. It all starts with the calculation of a municipality's levy limit. Every city and town has their levy limits recalculated on an annual basis. And the formula is pretty simple. You take last year's levy limit, which is the maximum amount we could have raised in property taxes in FY20. That's about 25.4 million. Increase 2.5%. Everybody understands Proposition 2.5, and that's sort of one of the bedrock calculations of it. Your levy is allowed to increase 2.5% annually, but there's an allowance for growth on top of the 2.5%, and that is new construction, residential additions and alterations, commercial, industrial, new buildings, and personal property or utility valuation. And another trend that's been going on for a number of years is that we're seeing a lot of residential growth and we're seeing a lot of utility growth, personal property growth, but not a lot of commercial and industrial growth. We got a little bit more this year, but generally speaking, our tax base is growing, and it's growing in residential valuation and personal property, specifically utility valuation. Largest taxpayers are utility taxpayers. This year's growth was certified at just over $500,000. Last year, we were certified at $647,300. It's less, but it's still a real strong year for us, especially considering all that's gone on this year. On top of that, debt exclusions, the debt service on capital projects like the high school renovation, that type of thing. They're at 1.742 million. Last year, I think we were about 1.66 million. So if I got that wrong, Lisa can correct me. But the debt exclusions have stayed the same. What's a little bit different? If you remember last year, we had, I believe it's called a capital expenditure exclusion for a new piece of fire equipment. It was raised for 1 year. and we talked about this last year, we're going to have a spike in bills because this capital expenditure exclusion had passed for this new piece of fire equipment. We're going to pay it through the tax levy for 1 year. Well, we did, so that comes off this year. So that's not included anymore. So based upon all that math, maximum tax levy is $28.2 million. Our actual tax levy, and this is estimated, this might change a little bit, but is $25,602,800, which leaves the town with an excess levy capacity of about $2.6 million. And this is going to show up on that LA5 form when all the numbers are put in. Again, that might change plus or minus $1,000 or two, but that's basically set. And the excess levy capacity is remaining taxing capacity that the town could access without having to resort to an override. Obviously, any budget and expenditures would have to be improved, but we're not assessing property taxes as high as the law would allow. And that's good policy. Excess levy capacity is good to have. It's money in the bank. If state aid gets cut, if there's any kind of recession or depression of the real estate market, we would have the taxing capacity necessary to right the ship through some down years. And it's looked very favorably upon by the bond services, the Moody's people, and so forth. So it's very good to have. I think I bring this stat up every year, but I think it wasn't too many years ago that I thought I wrote it down. I guess I didn't. That I think our excess levy capacity was about $1,700. So we've come a long way from the old days. What's interesting is I took a look. This is FY20 data, but out of 351 communities, we had the 39th highest dollar amount of excess levy capacity for last year, which is good. It speaks well of the town financially, obviously. And what I also saw that there were about 202 communities with $200,000 or less of excess levy capacity. So, there aren't a lot of cities and towns who are in as good a shape as the town of Ayer is in this regard. So, in any event, last year's tax levy was just under 25 million. The increase in the tax levy is $617,100, and it's about a 2.5% change over last year. So it's normally I think we're about 4.5% increase on the levy every year, and this year is pretty favorable, 2.5%. So, any questions about that?
No
No
questions.
questions. Thanks.
Thank you. On page 10, I don't know if you can let me know if you want to keep this slide in the packet, but scrambling this year, so I didn't have a lot of time to decide whether or not to throw some things out. This is just sort of give you an understanding how a single tax rate works. Again, we talked about the levy divided by taxable value times 1,000 is $18.94. Last year's single tax rate was $19.20. So if we had a uniform tax rate, it would have dropped 1.4%. Whenever the percent increase in valuation exceeds the percent increase in the tax levy, the uniform tax rate will fall. And people like falling tax rates. It doesn't mean your bills are going down, but falling tax rates generally mean you've got a strong local real estate market, and that's to me anyway. It's a little better than paying higher taxes on falling valuations. If you remember, the total taxable valuation went up 4%. So all things being equal, the tax rate would drop 4%, but the levy increased 2.5%. So we have a net, in this case, about 1.4%. So that's sort of how the math works. On page 11, it's just a refresher of what the select board voted at last year's classification meeting on December 1st last year. Just summarized, total value was 1.3 billion. We're 67% residential, 33% commercial, but the residential taxpayers bore 49.2% of the levy with a resulting tax rate of 1410. And the CIP owners, even though they were 33% of the total taxable valuation, assumed 50.8% of the tax levy, and the tax rate was 29.57. I'm going to give you some insight on some advanced mathematics that have to go with the tax rate. There are two items we talk about. I talk about the shift factor and the residential factor. We're going to adopt, well, the select board is going to adopt a residential factor this evening, but the residential factor is derivative of the shift percentage. And they're sort of two sides of the same coin. But if you take that 1.54 shift percentage and multiply it times the 33% share of total valuation for CIP, you'll get the 50.8% of the tax levy. Or if you take the 1.54 and multiply it times a uniform tax rate, you'll get the commercial rate. Now, if you take the residential factor of 0.734081 and multiply that times 1920, you get the 1410 residential tax rate. So there's a lot that goes into the formula, but in the end, it's pretty simple. But again, the shift factor is something we focus on. The residential factors change every year depending on the changes in the valuation pie, but maintaining that shift factor consistently has sort of been kind of a hallmark of what the select boards have done here over the years. Any questions?
No.
No questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. The last page that I have for you this evening is represents tax rates based upon shift percentages and corresponding residential factors. Essentially, we have 75 tax rate choices if you go in every year. And not only that, we have every increment up to 6 decimal places in between. So we have quite a few tax rate choices. I try to cull it down for the selectmen every year. I do every 10% change in shift factor up until 1.50, and then I sort of do every 1% up to 1.60, and then I jump again to 1.70 and 1.75. As we discussed earlier, if we adopted a residential factor based upon a 1.00 shift factor, we would have a uniform tax rate. And you can see in this chart that the average residential bill would go up $2,000. And the median, I think it says average on that one. Oh, no, I got to fix it. The median C&I bill would actually go way down. And then as you go down the grid from 110, 120, you can see things start to even out a little bit. But, excuse me, I highlighted 1.54. That was last year's shift, and that would be a 0.746434 residential factor. If you adopted a residential factor based upon the same shift percentages last year, the resulting rates, estimated rates, would be 14.14 for residential, 29.17 for CIP. The average residential bill would go up $264, and the median C&I bill would actually go down a little bit, $117. Again, this is because the tax levy has shifted to the residential taxpayers. And again, what classification allows you to do is temper some of that shifting. meaning if you went to say residential factor at 1.56, you would only have a $198 increase on the average residential bill, and commercial and industrial bills, instead of going down, would be pretty much the same as last year. And in that instance, 1.56, 1.57, you'll see that both rates are actually lower than last year. So, but it's entirely up to the select board on where to go with this. I wouldn't go too crazy because, not that you would anyway, not this select board, but I think it's easy, especially when the market's hot and residential values are appreciating. It's easy for communities to see disproportionate increases and immediately act to smooth them out. And what happens if you do that for a few years, suddenly you'll find yourself with no further space to shift. Once you get to a shift factor 175, that's the limit, and you can't go below that. So if you're a community with a 1.75 shift factor and suddenly you get a 10% increase in residential valuation versus CIP, it's all going to fall on the residential taxpayers. There's going to be no way for you to shift onto CIP taxpayers. And again, initially looking at sales for next year, it looks like we're going to get a pretty decent size bump in residential valuations. So it's something to keep in mind that you want to sort of be careful about when and how much you move the residential factor. This year, in this case, if you want to move it a few percentage points, it's certainly reasonable. But if you want to stay the course and maintain the residential factor at the 1.54, that's certainly fine too. It's kind of in the select board's court at this point. So, any questions?
No questions, Tom. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Guess, is there anybody on from the public that has questions? Okay. All right. So I'm guessing the next is that we vote on the exemptions.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, you'd have to vote on the first three options and a residential factor.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
All right. Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that the Board of Selectmen do not accept the open space discount.
Seconded.
Okay. Board Member Hood, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board Member Livingston, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The first exemption is not accepted.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that the select board does not accept the residential exemption.
Second.
Okay. Board Member Livingston, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board Member Hood, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The exemption is not accepted.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that the Board of Selectmen the Select Board does not accept the small commercial exemption.
Seconded.
Okay. Board Member Hood, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board Member Livingston, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The exemption is not accepted. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'll just looking at the CIP shift factor for the tax rates, I'd be inclined to keep the current shift factor 1.54.
Yep.
Okay, I agree.
I agree. And it shows that that's pretty much where we've been steady. And it seems that the impact is at least even as much as possible, so.
Okay.
I'll make a motion. Did anyone have a question? I thought I saw
Yeah, I
something.
saw one of the phones light up.
Was there a question from the public before we vote? Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that the select board approve the residential factor of 0.746434, which is a CIP shift of 1.54.
I will second.
Okay. Board Member Livingston, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board Member Hood, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the chair says aye. And the residential rate is accepted.
Awesome.
May I just finish up?
Yeah, please do.
Sorry, I hope I'm consistent with protocol here. Just so you know how the process plays out, Lisa Gabriel has already prepared the tax recapitulation documents. They're ready to go into Boston. All we're waiting for is the residential factor for this evening. So we'll get on that tomorrow. But Lisa's got it all done. Since I've been here, there hasn't been a single problem with the recap getting it through. So as usual, I expect that to go smoothly. After that, we're going to work on the property tax commitment, liens, taxes, exemptions. We're going to issue 2 tax bills by midnight on December 31st. They'll be due Feb 1 and May 1, unless that's a week, and then it's the following business day. I just wanted to let the select board know and people at home to know. Don't forget the town meeting voted to raise the Community Preservation Act surcharge to 3% for this year, and that's going to be applied on 3rd and 4th quarter bills. The 2 bills that went out, the preliminary bills, were based on last year's tax, so they only included a CPA of 1%. So what's going to happen is going to be a disproportionate, if you look at the 4 bills, it's going to be a disproportionate increase on the CPA for 3rd and 4th quarter. It's going to be 3% for the year. You're just going to pay more on the 3rd and 4th quarter bill. So for the people at home, I'd say, well, don't take the CPA due on the 3rd quarter bill and multiply it times 4 and say that's my CPA tax for the year, because you'd be overstating it. It's just just because this year is the first year going from 1 to 3, it's going to be weighted to the last 2 tax bills. Next year it'll be a lot smoother, but this year because of statute, this is where it's going to fall. So just want to let you know.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
You're
Tom. Right, with that, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Seconded.
Okay, Board Member Hood, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board Member Livingston, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the chair says aye, and our public hearing is closed.
Great job,
Thank
Tom.
you, everyone.
I got to step away. Second. Okay. Sorry, needed a pillow. Chair is not
All
coming.
right, so the next item up is a joint meeting with the Board of Health for appointment of a Board of Health member.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Robert.
through you, we are joined this evening by Miss Pam Papineau, the chair of the Ayer Board of Health, and Miss Trish Peters, a member of the Ayer Board of Health. And I put in the packet outlining the joint appointment process for both boards, just for the public's benefit. A member of the elected Board of Health, Miss Mary Spinner, resigned back in September. The chair of the Board of Health transmitted that formal resignation to the Select Board. The Select Board voted on November 2nd to declare the vacancy. The filling of the vacancy of an elected board is governed under Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 11. We advertised the position to the public for over 2 weeks. The requirement is at least 2 weeks. It was advertised from November 3rd through November 20th on the town's website, social media. The town clerk posted it outside of the town hall on the bulletin board. As of Friday, November 20th, which was the deadline, we received 2 applicants, Mr. Stephen Slarsky of Ayer and Mr. Mark Wall of Ayer. And you have in your packet, and the Board of Health has this information, has their letter of intent and interest and other credentials. So at this time, it's a joint meeting of the Select Board and the Board of Health. Traditionally, the town asks each candidate to introduce themselves to the joint group, sort of an opening statement, if you will, and then it's open for questions from members of the Board of Health and members of the Select Board. And after both candidates have had an opportunity to address the joint appointment and questions have been asked, and then a motion would be in order to appoint. And it's a simple majority of the 3 Select Board and the 2 members of the Board of Health. So at least a 3-2 vote for appointment. The selected individual will serve out the term until the next annual town election, which is in May of 2021. So that just to give you the overview. I believe in addition to the members of the Board of Health, we do have Mr. Stephen Slarsky and Mr. Mark Wall on the meeting.
All right, thank you. Okay.
Robert, who starts the process?
I was going to suggest to the chair of the Select Board, Selectman Copeland, maybe start in the order that the applicants were received. Maybe start with Mr. Slarsky and then move to Mr. Wall.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. That sounds good. So good evening, Mr. Slarsky.
Good evening.
How are you today?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good. So we do have, do you mind giving a little introduction of yourself and your interest in being a member, again, of the board?
Sure. Let me start off by saying that I commend you guys for doing a great job in terms of keeping the people in the town safe during these very unusual times. So hats off to the job that you've done. My background is in healthcare. I've had the opportunity to serve the town of Ayer in many different capacities over the years. Every one of them has been terrific. And when Ms. Spinner resigned, I just thought this is an opportunity that maybe I can contribute something that would be positive based on my training and experience, and hopefully help the people of the town of Ayer and all of us get through these unprecedented times. That's my interest.
Okay. And sorry, Robert, you were suggesting then just to move on to questions from board members for each candidate?
It's your, as the chair, it's up to you, Mr. Chairman. You could have each do their intro statement and then open it to questions, or you could do the intro statement, open it to questions, and then move to the next candidate.
Yeah, I think that, okay. I think that makes sense. So I'll open it up to any questions from the board.
I don't have any right now. I have Mr. Solarsky's letter and resume in front of me. I don't know if Pam has any questions.
Yes. Yeah, I also have the resume, and thanks to both of you for volunteering for this position. I feel like we have a wealth of expertise and background between these 2 candidates. I was just curious, Mr. Slarsky, do you prefer Stephen or Steve or?
Just Steve. That's fine.
Okay. See, all right, we can stick with Mr. Slarsky if you want to be really formal, but
I'd rather not. That was my dad.
okay, good, that works for me. So, Steve, how long ago were you on the board? I'm just curious. That's not really a qualifications question.
So interesting enough, I was thinking about that. I believe it was 1982 or 83. And
Wow.
there had been a resignation on the board at the time. And I was a local pharmacist, and I said I'd be interested in filling the vacancy, and they selected me, and then I ran for the position, and I got elected to the position. And I don't remember exactly what year I ran for selectman, but there would have been a conflict of interest, and I resigned from the Board of Health after, I think, 2 years, but I don't have the exact time frame.
Okay, all right. So it was sometime in the 80s, and then you went from there to the selectmen, and I see you served 5 terms.
Yeah, glutton for punishment, I guess.
I know. I'm reading through that and all the other things that you're doing and involved in, and it's a heck of a list. And I'm presuming that, you say you recently retired as captain of the call division for the fire department. So I would expect your relationship with that group is pretty close, because they are, in this town, as you probably know, they're kind of the keepers of a lot of the emergency supplies and so forth. So we occasionally need to interface with that group, and that responsibility could suddenly expand if we end up in a situation where we need to do like a drive-through dispensing site, or who knows what the system is going to be for vaccinations for COVID. So in that respect, I'm looking at the ties that you have to the town and your experience as a pharmacist, and that does fit pretty nicely with what we anticipate that our needs are going to be. Can you tell me, and I feel a little guilty that I don't know this, but what is the Massachusetts Disaster Medical Assistance Team?
So there are about 55 teams across the country. There are 2 in Massachusetts, MA1 and MA2, and they're designated under FEMA, under Health and Human Services. And they're on call, I want to say every 3rd or 4th month, to respond to major disasters, public events, such as like the 4th of July in DC. They activate a couple teams. For the State of the Union, they activate 2 teams that you don't know are there. And then for any hurricanes or natural disasters, they always pre-position medical teams somewhere in that area in the event they're going to be needed.
Okay, gotcha. So you may or may not, from when your time comes to be called up, you may or may not be called, depending on what's going on. It sounds like.
Exactly. It depends on the extent of what the need is, whether they deploy an entire hospital unit or they pick and choose different specialties. On the team that I'm on, I think we have 3 pharmacists, and generally if they deploy everybody, all 3 of us get deployed. I haven't gone anywhere in 2 years. Went to a hurricane in Florida 2 years ago, which was just amazing to see how things work.
Yeah, interesting. And that's rolled up to FEMA? It doesn't go into MEMA?
No, it's FEMA. It's a federal response.
It goes right up to the federal level. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. That must be, you must have had some interesting experiences there.
Well, the first time I went anywhere was to the State of the Union address, and I thought that was just eye-opening that they, have medical teams that you don't even see at the State of the Union. But it was fascinating.
It does kind of make sense. You got a large crowd.
Yep.
Who knows? People could get ill, get hurt. Okay, great. I think I've got a good idea of where you're coming from. Trish, you have any Any questions or
I
comments?
I don't have any questions for Steve right now. I thank him for applying and I'm impressed. There's a lot of highlighting I've done on this is things that pertain to health and human services. I think I have all the info I need in front of me. Thank you.
Okay. Now it's a little bit of an unfair question because I don't know what I'm going to do next week, never mind next spring. But can you give us an idea of whether it's your intent, unless you are appointed and it turns out to be just a horrible experience for you, which I can't imagine it would. Are you interested in running again so that you would hold this seat for some period of time, or is this really more of a short-term kind of stopgap volunteer opportunity?
I don't want to say I'm not interested in doing that, but I think that, as you said, some days you don't know where you're going to be the next day, and
right.
I just find it very difficult to make any long-term plans on anything.
I gotcha.
For the most part, the house that I live in, we built in 1987, and we still live in it. But
yeah, okay.
With these times, you just don't know what is the next curve to be thrown at you. So hopefully things work out, and I would not be uninterested in doing that. Let me put it that way, I guess.
Okay, all right, that's fair. I mean, but that's probably about as specific as really any of us can be.
Sure.
Okay, I think from Board of Health standpoint, we're all set with Mr. Slasky. If we want to move on to Mr. Wall.
All right. Do either of the select board members have questions?
No questions, thanks.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I should have invited you all to comment. That was
That's
rude.
okay.
You're doing great, Pam. Just keep it up.
But yes, we could go ahead and we can move on to Mr. Wall. Good evening. How are you?
I think you're muted.
Oh, I think you're muted.
Huh.
I still can't hear you, Mark.
Yeah.
It shows him that he's not muted.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see that.
Check your volume level on your computer.
This is the point at which Cindy usually rescues me.
Let me see if.
Sit down on the couch.
I know if you go down to that little widget, that little upside down triangle I'm saying, next to your microphone, I always check on that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can hear me, but usually the best thing to do is to hit the little arrow next to the mute microphone and test your audio.
Are you there, Donna?
Yeah.
Look at the town hall. I was trying to figure out what the hell.
Oh, the ceiling. Cindy's wallpaper.
Yeah, I'm not sure that Mark can hear me.
Are we able to provide him with a call-in number, perhaps? He can join by phone?
Yeah, let me send him a message.
Okay.
Be right back.
Even though we've all been using it for almost a year, Zoom still has its quirks, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Most definitely.
I will be right back.
Hi, Robert and Sean. I just got Mark the call-in number.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, a
Yeah.
little bit.
A little bit.
Oh,
All right. We'll just wait for Janice to return. And
I'm
then...
here.
Nope, there we go. All right. Okay, so Mark, thank you for being here. And thank you for expressing an interest. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and maybe explain your interest in being on the Board of Health.
Sure.
think, excuse me. Mark, I think
Yeah.
you come closer or speak into the phone, wherever you're using.
Yeah, we're not really picking up your audio very well at all.
It's there, it's just faint. Maybe if you come closer to the computer.
How's that? Any better?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've lived in town since 1992. My wife and I have raised a family here. And very simply saw this as an opportunity to volunteer some time for the town, especially during this time of the COVID crisis. And I thought it would be a special time to volunteer my time.
Oh, it's definitely a special time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And questions from the board members?
I have one. So is there something specific that the Board of Health interests you in?
Not especially. I just saw it as an opening that I thought I could fill and do some volunteer work.
Mark, have you been able to watch any of the meetings on APAC or attend any or have any background on how we operate?
I haven't watched any Board of Health meetings. Over the years, I've attended a few town meetings. I do have experience as a member of Toastmasters International. So I have an idea of how meetings are run.
Okay. Pam, do you have anything?
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, it actually, I'm looking at, I'm kind of smiling a little bit at our Zoom difficulties because what really stands out to me about your resume is the breadth of your computer experience. But Zoom humbles everyone.
I've used Zoom before, and even with this computer, and
yeah.
not sure what happened to the audio this time.
Oh, I know. It's kind of potluck for me too. I definitely get that. Do you have any particular experience, I don't know, that kind of touches upon that public health, whether it's a volunteer, just a private interest, you know, something like that?
The only related experience I have is my first professional job was at Tufts Health Plan, but it was like 25 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand. None of us want to go back to our first job for sure.
Actually, it was one of the best jobs I ever had.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, clearly from the types of positions that you've held, I think you probably have some pretty good project management skills to go along with those computer skills. And, you know, that's an important consideration too for something like a town board. So, you know, I don't think that it's absolutely a necessity that you have some specific public health experience. I'll ask you the same very forward-looking, but I understand not very committal response that I asked Mr. Slarsky, and that's, are you thinking of this position as more of a, you know, kind of putting in 4 months, or would you be open to continuing in the position and running for election in the spring?
I think not having any real town experience, I think it would be something that I would explore. If I liked it,
sure,
I'd continue on with it if that were possible.
Okay, all right. No, that's fair. What I'm really looking for is that if either one of you are, you know, no, I'm moving to Florida next June, and you're never going to see me again.
Right. Wouldn't be
Well,
helpful.
that's not in the plan.
Okay.
That.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it. Okay, I got you. Trish, anything else on your end?
No, like you said, Pam, it's not, you know, a prerequisite to have a background in any kind of health experience, but I was looking at your resume and it's very impressive. It's very, you have a lot of experience in, I see computer software, troubleshooting, customer service, all this stuff that is valuable. I just don't know if it would fit with being on a board of health where we talk about health issues and we work in conjunction with the Neshoba Associated Boards of Health. Yeah, that was my question when I was comparing the two resumes. I was just looking at the experiences that you both had.
That's fine.
Yeah,
kind of what I was doing. Put my name in and hope for the best.
Thank you.
Sure. I really, really appreciate it.
Definitely.
It's you're both correct that this is a really unusual time. So to step up to want to be on any local board of health right now takes a certain amount of fortitude, I think.
Courage.
Courage, yeah, stamina, and a thick skin. No, so I think that I'm all set there. Oh, I'm sorry, I almost forgot to ask this. I'm shuffling around my notes here on my very cluttered desk. Have either of you spent any time for any reason, delving into any of the, IME remediation, the Shepley's Hill business, the, PFAS substances and the, cleanup, associated cleanups and so forth, is that something that either one of you have spent any time thinking about or looking into? It's a little obscure, so don't feel bad if you both say no.
I just followed it from, a town resident point of view to kind of track what's going on. And I've always been impressed by the progress the town has made with those issues, but no more than that.
Okay.
Hi, this is Steve.
Yep.
In terms of tracking it, I haven't tracked it, but I am familiar with the area, the contaminants, the effect on Plowshop Pond. I'm also pretty knowledgeable in terms of the firefighting foam and usage of it over the years. And some of the conversation that's gone on regarding the potential effect of, using foam. So I am aware of that. I knew the site when it was an active military base, and, I know the test wells that have been put in. So I am familiar with that part of it, but on a detailed basis, I don't have a lot of detail.
Yeah. It's very hard to keep up, on the details of that situation. But okay, certainly sounds like from a, just as residents, you're both aware, and you spent a little time thinking about it and looking into it. That's all I have for questions. So I would turn it back to Board of Selectmen for any questions you might have, or how you want to proceed from here.
Okay. Any questions from the select board?
I don't have any questions.
Okay. So without there being any more questions, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion, if there is one.
I will make a motion that we appoint Mr. Stephen Slasky to the empty slot, and that's not I'm sorry, I don't want to go on and on while I'm making a motion, but it's not a reflection of that, Mr. Wall has a lack of good qualifications, to the contrary. It just seems like with your specific interest or experience with so many areas, pharmacy, fire department, FEMA, that you would be a really good fit for us right now. So I guess that was the preamble. So based on that, I will make a motion that we appoint Mr. Slasky to the open position on Board of Health.
I second.
Okay. Okay. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry. Okay. And then from the board, Board Member Hood? Sorry.
Aye.
Board Member Livingston?
Aye.
And the chair says aye. Sorry, I should have did that differently. But so the appointment of Mr. Solarsky to the Board of Health is passed. Thank you very much, Mr. Wall.
Thank you.
Thank
you,
you.
Mr. Wall.
Yeah,
Sorry about
thank you
the
so
audio
much.
issues.
Thank you for applying.
Thanks, Steve.
I
Yeah,
hope we
thank
see you apply for something else.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
We can hook you up with many boards.
Yes.
Yes.
Stay involved. Thank you.
To both
Thank
boards, I just to say thank you very much, and it's an honor and privilege, and I'll do the best that I can.
Mr.
Great.
Chairman,
Thank you.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Robert.
Thank you.
Stephen,
All right. Thank you.
I can catch him after.
Okay.
Oh, did you need, okay, you needed something?
Mr. Chairman, just through you to Pam and Trish, I'll reach out to Mr. Slasky. He'll need to be sworn in by the town clerk.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
And our next meeting is, where is my December calendar? December 14th. So if we can,
Yep.
yeah, get him sworn in and ready to hit the ground on the 14th running, that would be fantastic. I'm so happy to be back to a full force
Yes.
Board of Health.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. So I just need help with this. Since it's a joint meeting, does this have to be adjourned from the joint meeting, or do we just move on to?
Mr. Chairman, the Board of Health wants to adjourn. They should adjourn for the record, and then the Select Board will continue with your meeting.
Okay.
Okay. Did we open our meeting though for Board of Health?
As Select Board Chair, because you were posted on the agenda,
Okay.
satisfies the call to order for the joint appointment.
Okay. All right. Got it. It's the details. The devil's in the details.
Yes.
So given that, I will move that we adjourn the Board of Health portion of this joint meeting at 7:26 p.m.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, guys.
I'm going to stick around
Thank you very much.
as a citizen for a little while just to listen. Thank you.
Absolutely. We'd love to have people. Okay, so moving on, our next agenda item is going to be is from the DPW and from Superintendent Wetzel.
Great, thank you. Boy,
Hi, Mark. How are you?
pretty exciting municipal government going on tonight, huh?
It's a lot.
Anyway, so I have three hopefully quick items. I imagine we'll have a little discussion on the second item. The first item is I have a change order for the wastewater treatment plant upgrade project. And I'd like to, I included a draft of the change order in the packet, but we ended up having to modify. We got some updated numbers from the contractor. So the change order total is now $76,684, which brings the total contract up to $1,515,573. What we do with these change orders is rather than doing an individual one for each small change, we kind of accumulate them and add them into one or two change orders as the job progresses. So the increase was we had missed some labor costs for the plumbing modifications, and so that went from $2,778 to $5,056. But so the change order includes contract time extension. They had some issues with mobilizing and also getting some of the materials due to the COVID shutdown. We had to disconnect the grit classifier that was an unforeseen condition. Anytime you're doing work in an existing plant, it's hard to identify every single thing that you're going to need to do. So we end up with a lot of little additions and deletions. The big one as part of this was we put in a gas detection system in the facility. That was originally proposed in a future phase, but when we started looking at how we were going to do some of the other work that they would have to come back and redo some work unless we did this now. So that was the main item. And then we had a couple credits, and so I'm recommending that the board vote to approve change order number 1 and for signature by the board.
What was the new amount again, Mark?
$1,515,573.
Any questions from the
And
board?
the change order total again?
The change order is $76,684.
Okay.
Oh, wait.
I mean, I have no questions.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that the select board approve the change order one, the change order being $76,684 with the contract amount being $15,573. I got that right, yeah. Did I?
I'll second.
Okay. Board Member Livingston, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board Member Hood, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The change order has been accepted.
All right, thank you. So the next item was, if you may recall, we had some discussion at town meeting about the water and sewer extension to Harvard. And apparently I wasn't at the following selectmen's meeting, but apparently that was discussed and that we needed to have a more formal policy before it gets to town meeting. So actually, I went back through some of my notes and found that I had actually put a memo together for the selectmen a few years ago, and we never really acted on it. So I took that memo and took some of my other thoughts and put together a procedure for the town and the public to review the potential extension before it gets to the town meeting vote. So my recommended process would be, number one, that the person seeking the extension would submit an application for water and sewer, minimum of 75 days prior to town meeting, with an application fee of $1,000 submitted to the town manager's office. The application would be reviewed by the town engineer with a report to the select board. The applicant would provide response to any of the town engineer's comments, and then the select board would hold a public hearing with some input from the town residents. The applicant must attend the public hearing, and then the select board would vote to recommend for or against a town meeting warrant article. And then I outlined some of the information that would be required for the application, which is the applicant's name and address and the owner's name and address, project location, project description, preliminary plan, letter from town where project is located, with the town supporting execution of an intermunicipal agreement. This is something that I'm not really sure we should probably talk to town council about. I don't know if you can execute an intermunicipal agreement with a private party or if it has to be with the town. So it may be, the process may be that we need to have the town, so say it's for Harvard may need to have to apply for the extension out of town. I think if it's a house here or a house there, because we do have some houses that are right on the town border. But if it's a project within a town and it requires a significant extension into the town, then we would want to have an intermunicipal agreement. And that would, I'm not sure who executes that. And then you put the status of his project schedule, his water and wastewater requirements, and what alternatives there were if he didn't get water and sewer from the town of Ayer. And then I included in here some modifications to the rules and regulations which would incorporate these recommendations. Any questions from the board?
Yeah, Mark, I have a question. So you have a date of 75 days prior to town meeting for submission. How long do you think that whole process to get through the review and then public hearings would take? And the reason I'm asking is just kind of thinking about how close the end of that process would bump up against town meeting. when the Board of Selectmen decide whether or not to put it on the warrant article?
I would guess that you could go through the process within 60 days. I'm not sure what the, maybe Mr. Pomprion can, I forget what the warrant schedule is for when we submit warrant articles and when they have to be approved by.
Through the chair, to Select Member Hood's question. I think the question of timing is a good one on this, and I think we need to look at it. I think that Mark, from his end, assuming all things were in order or so forth, 60 to 75 days from the project perspective through DPW would work. I think the question that the Select Board then has is twofold. One is the scheduling for the warrant, and as the board knows, that varies depending on the town meeting, that we may need more time in terms of the scheduling. And secondly, if the board, the Select Board chooses to also have a public input forum as part of that as well. So I think I appreciate Mark, and we talked about this, putting together this draft to start the discussion and get input. 75 days was put from sort of our end as a placeholder, but that could be altered.
Yeah, I would like to see some kind of a date before town meeting that everything has to be finalized, and not simply the day that we're voting on the warrant to send it to town meeting, because I would envision, given the way that the last process played out, that even if we had a public forum, there would still be a digest time where the public would probably come up with additional questions. And I would like to try to bake in a little more of that time so that we can get feedback. And then when we vote on the articles themselves for town meeting, that would be kind of like the drop dead date of when we would have that decision. But kind of when the process is settled with getting public information out there, bake in a little more time.
Through the chair, to Selectman Hood, I think a suggestion I have, what we do know is each year by September, the board has approved the budget calendar with the town meeting warrant schedule for that year. So by that time, we could, for each year, build in the appropriate dates, so that if the superintendent of public works, who's usually the point of contact for these initially, we can then manage the expectations of the applicant and schedule it in to build in the time you're talking about.
That works for me. Thanks.
And I appreciate the input that the expectation is, and I agree that you'd like it, obviously not the night that the warrant's being approved, to have advanced time.
Janice?
So in here in this draft, it's saying the town engineer review will include like proposed fees and charges. Now, of course, the select board is the water and sewer commissioners, but I'd like to see the water and the actual rate committee involved in setting the rates and helping with the recommendation to the select board, because that is part of our whole process. Now, we do have some rates that we are already, as far as like, somebody new to the, building a new home or whatever into the town, how much it costs to tie in. So I think we could come up with something in the rate review committee already, as far as at least having an idea as to, in the future, what it may cost, so that we'd have a general idea. But I'd like to see the rate review committee involved in the process.
Okay. Yep. It's good suggestion. We can incorporate that.
Any other questions on the draft?
No, I'll just add, Mark, I think this is a good starting point and very well thought out. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely is.
So, Mr. Chair, through you, what will do as far as next steps is we'll incorporate the scheduling component based on the feedback of tonight, and also the rate review feedback that Selectman Livingston mentioned. And we'll put together a final draft, and then for the next select board's meeting, if the select board wants to review and finalize or approve that, does that sound like a plan?
I think it sounds good.
Sounds good.
Yes, Sarah?
I want to understand a little bit about how the planning board is going to be brought in.
Mr. Chair, through you, to Ms. Withy's question, what we were thinking is that in the application, when a formal application is received, what we learned from town meeting and from input, when we receive that, it simultaneously would go to the select board as the water and sewer commissioners. What we're hearing from tonight's feedback from Selectman Livingston, it would go to the rate review committee, and it would also go to the planning board. And I talked briefly to the chairman, Mr. Tillotson from the planning board, what their expectation is, and their expectation is to just be formally notified and brought into the process from the beginning. And depending on the project, and every project is different, the project may have other planning board either requirements or other planning board concerns. But I think our goal is to have a formal process. So right from the beginning, if you will, the select board, rate review, planning board, and frankly, the public, because it'd be a public document, the application, everybody is on the same page from the beginning. And then obviously any project has to go through its respective processes, whether it's planning board, conservation, zoning, select board, but that everybody from the beginning is aware and on the same page as we move forward. So the planning board, and I can follow up in more detail with them, but thought that this was the chair thought this was a positive step, as did the vice chair. I talked to him briefly as well, that they would be getting the project application and being notified right at the beginning of the process.
The planning board involved, but the planning board or some land use committee, like their involvement is like essential because it's a little bit, it's an independent besides the selectman and the town manager's office.
Right.
I just have one more question. Who's going to be like in charge of this process? Is it the town engineer? Like just facilitating the process?
So I think, if I may, through the chair, the application, when finalized, really the main, I would say that generally the main point of contact has always been the DPW, meaning the DPW superintendent, town engineer, that office, which obviously we work very closely with. They would really take the lead on all of the technical piece. Now, when that application comes in, simultaneously, the select board is going to have it, my office, the elected planning board. And I want to just point out, Sarah, with the planning board, the town planner, as well as the DPW superintendent, the assistant town manager, we meet weekly. There's a land use group. So the overall, the process, I would say, ultimately falls under the select board as the water and sewer commissioners, with myself and the DPW superintendent really as their 2 point departments to facilitate it. But at the end of the day, the select board has the authority whether or not to put anything on the warrant. And I'm not to speak for the select board, but I think the intent of this process moving forward is that when we do get to the warrant point, everybody will have been involved and notified from the beginning of that process.
Sorry.
No.
I have, I'm so sorry. I have two more questions. One of them is when you set your deadline, if you could explain it to me like really well. I didn't understand what you guys were just saying about matching it to the budget calendar, really. I kind of did, but not really. But maybe that can be next week or next meeting. But the other thing is, what's the notification going to be to residents?
That's a good point. So, through the chair, I think, so this application, once it's received, let's say it's completed from a potential project or applicant, as we do with anything, it would be date stamped, and I think we could, in this process, because it's public record, probably put it under, we could put it on the town's website is what I'm thinking. So I know what you're getting at. So the public, and I'm thinking, I mean, again, the select board is ultimately not only the chief executive body, but the water and sewer commissioners, and they also control the warrant. And if there was to be an intermunicipal agreement, ultimately that also has to be approved by the select board. So I'm thinking, Sarah, and we can, as we put this draft together, that it would be be available publicly through the select board's office in the event that there are folks that don't use the internet. So that, granted, this is different times, but also would be on the town website.
I also think that given the number of committees or boards that are involved in the process, it allows, as well as a public input meeting, it allows for it to be on several agendas. So it should be publicized enough, and there should be enough opportunities for the public to be informed as well as to participate.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
You know, one of the things I should mention, so I've worked here for 9 years, and we've had 3 less than 9 years. So it's not something that is happening like a planning board application where you have 5 projects going on at once. It's something that is relatively rare, and I don't see a lot of you know, when you look at out of town, you know, you've got Groton, Littleton, Shirley, and Harvard. So we pretty much know where the connections are and what's going on. So I think there's it's not something that we have to inform everybody on a very regular basis.
I would think too that somehow if the planning board is involved and everything like that, that somehow abutters would be notified also. So there would be that notification of, hey, this conversations may be happening. I know Robert mentioned the website, but I also want to make sure that we know also Facebook, you know, something would be posted on Facebook, not just the website.
I just want to chime in on that. Unless it's specifically stated in a state statute on a butter notification and newspaper publication, it's really, it's not needed. And we've been moving away from, in the past, everything was put in the newspaper and mailed, and it never really had to be. So unless there's a specific state statute that requires that, it's not a necessity. So for example, if someone was going before a planning board for a special permit, abutters would be notified, etc. But I don't ever foresee a situation where an out-of-town developer would have to come before our planning board. So I just want to throw that out there, because not everything needs an abutter notification.
So just to clarify what you just said, or to make sure I understood you, you're saying that a town developer wouldn't have to come to the planning board?
No, I'm saying an out-of-town developer. If they're proposing a development in Harvard's jurisdiction, I don't foresee them coming before an Ayer land use board.
Right. So we've also stated that we would have them, you know, come to town meeting. But we also have to remember that if they live out of town, they have to get permission to speak at town meeting. And if they're not having to, so here's where we might have a glitch. If they're not having to come to the planning board because it's going to be in another town's lines, would they even be willing to come into a town meeting to talk about the fact that, you know, they may, whatever they're developing in the other town would be under the other town's guidelines, but they just want to come into and grab our water and sewer. So we could end up with a glitch. So I think we might need to fine tune exactly how we're going to want this process to go forward.
Yeah, and it varies. I can just say from this office and doing the zoning stuff, some stuff is, it's all in the state zoning statute. Some stuff is 300-foot radius, depending. Liquor licenses, sometimes it's 500 feet, depending on each circumstance. So unless, again, there was a state statute that like governed this whole process, I mean, we could put something in a regulation, but just something to think about. It's not something that when people hear public hearing, sometimes they assume, oh, it'll be in the newspaper and a butter is notified, but unless it's in somewhere that we have to do it, then it generally won't get done. Just to keep that in everyone's mind.
And the extent of our water and sewer is not necessarily just affecting the abutters. I mean, the abutters on Harvard Road are what, the gas station and maybe some windows, whereas it really has an impact on the whole community and the ratepayers, and so it's hard to just notify a group of people. But I think there's nowadays with the postings on the website and the social media, that if something gets posted on, when I post something, or I usually request that it goes on Facebook, goes on the town website, the town announcements, and Twitter. So then that can get dispersed to the people that are concerned about it.
Scott, did you have a question?
Yeah, looking at the memo that Mark put together, number 4 is that the select board holds a public hearing and that the applicant must attend that public hearing. So I think that is a key part of the process that needs to be established. If there's no requirement for the applicant to go to the planning board, then the fact that we're going to tell them that they have to come to a public meeting of the select board and they have to basically answer questions and do their cell job at that, I think that is a public hearing that we've done a decent job of advertising and try and get out more on social media instead of just the town website to make people aware of the process that's going on. And where it's a public hearing, it has a specific title that would be related to out-of-town water and sewer hookups.
Good points.
Sarah, you look like you have another question.
I'm just going to put this out there just because, well, I actually came here thinking, oh, I'm going to ask them to send a letter to every single person in this town when there's an application. I mean, you can charge the developer to do that. I knew that this would be the response, but it's the idea.
Having sent out on a regular basis, at least for the last 3 years, I've sent out my notification on the PFAS in the water, and then we also have to send out the notification on the our water quality report annually. It's a big job, regardless of who pays for it. It's disruptive in here because we have to collect all the correct addresses and make sure everything gets to the mail.
Mark, we're losing you.
Oh,
yeah, better.
It's a big effort to send stuff out. I'm sure Carly can also comment on that. She does a lot of townwide mailing. Regardless who pays for it, it's a big effort. And I don't know what the I don't know how many people would out of the whole town really would benefit from that. I mean, when I send out townwide things about the water, I probably get maybe a half a dozen calls at the moment.
Well, I can just tell you anecdotally from we send town meeting warrants to every household in the town, and we maybe have 150 attend. Some people, when they get them in the mail, think it's a warrant for their arrest, and they call town hall and ask when they have to be in court. We get 2 or 3 of those every time. But yeah, I think it would be a very large undertaking if we had to do that.
Mr. Chair, when you have a time?
Sure.
So, I mean,
Mr. Bedosa, go ahead.
Yep, this is Dave. So, I mean, I don't think it's unreasonable to start. I don't think it's unreasonable to say that a notice will be put in the newspaper, just like you do for a public hearing. But I mean, there should be a notice in the newspaper. That's not cost prohibitive. The applicant can apply for that. I'd also like to see, I mean, ahead of time, you know, some of the issues that should come up kind of listed, you know, either by the Board of Selectmen or by Mark's. Things such as, you know, how and it doesn't have to be in the municipal agreement, but, you know, how are you going to deal with outdoor water usage if there's a ban in Ayer? You know, what are the criteria for consideration? Just because they apply doesn't mean that, you know, you should go through a big process. You know, what is so I'd like to see some sort of list of things prior to the next person coming, you know, into town. Have that list ready to say, hey, you know, these are the questions we're going to ask every time, and not just kind of like wing it. I also would say that, I mean, 75 days is not anywhere near enough. I think that's an understanding, because if they were to submit tomorrow, it takes 14 days until you guys meet again. You close the warrant like 3 weeks before, you know, so you're down to like 40 days at that. So I like to see that time pushed out, but we definitely need a list of criteria to even consider it. And I think that should be kind of published so everybody knows what it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on this item?
No. Thank you for letting me make some comments.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. Okay, so your next item, Mark?
Well, are there any action items related to this, other than maybe Robert and I clean up some of the questions about the timing and some of the additional reviews?
I think that's about all.
Yeah, I think that covered it.
Yeah.
Okay, so the final item is the board asked me to put together an outline of the renegotiating the new wastewater treatment agreement with Mass Development. So currently we have a 20-year agreement with Mass Development where we can send them up to 800,000 gallons a day of wastewater. That expires in December of 2021, and based on the calculations that I've done, we don't need 800,000 gallons a day of capacity, but we need some additional capacity, probably about 400 to 500,000 gallons a day. And there's a couple reasons for that. One is that typically, so the DEP requires you to have a plan for treating your waste once you reach 80% of your treatment capacity. And right now we're at 80% of our treatment capacity. So we need to continue to have a plan to for any additional flows. And that's what was the basis behind the original Devon's agreement. Actually, I haven't run all the numbers, but it's not an unreasonable per gallon cost of what they charge us to treat our waste. And we actually use it fairly frequently. We're obligated to send them 100,000 gallons a day, which that's one of the items I would renegotiate out of there, because we don't necessarily have to send them waste every day. But we do, well, for instance, we had one of our clarifiers went down last Tuesday. So with the holiday and everything, we had one clarifier offline. We repaired it today, but we were sending additional flows to Devon's while we had one offline. So there's a huge benefit to having that interconnection. So anyway, the process that I put together is first to assign an agreement negotiation team, update and review the 20-year wastewater flow projection. And I had done that recently, but it needs some further scrutiny. Review the existing agreement and update the definitions, existing conditions, and identify the areas where the town of Ayer wants to modify or renegotiate the existing agreement. Then meet with Mass Development, I would say informally, and discuss what the process is, what the schedule is, and what issues we want to negotiate. And then, and the key issues would be the length of the agreement, the flow volume, if we have a required flow, what the fees are, and rates, and how we can amend the agreement or terminate the agreement. Right now, we don't have any termination agreement in the document. And then discuss any legal issues with town council, and then schedule negotiations with Devens and begin negotiating. So I put together a preliminary schedule, which I think is pretty realistic. And that was included in the memo. And I have on my to-do list to start looking at the current agreement and marking up what I think are the main issues. And I can, once we have a agreement negotiation team, then we can discuss the issues that I've identified.
Any questions?
No, just to give you a little background though, it's as far as, this is a 20-year-old agreement. So I think it was written on a Post-it note 20 years ago that was found buried. So I'm glad to see that we're going to have a real negotiation. Everything's going to be documented. There's going to be a possible reopener in there. This has been a big deal, which is why I asked it for the update again, so that we can make sure that everything's going to be done right. And it sounds like Mark's on the very good track and it's all going to be done correctly. So I'm looking forward to this finally getting done, because this thing has not been good for the town of Ayer at all.
It's exciting. Okay. And so there was no action items on that either. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Welcome.
Thanks, Mark.
Have a great night. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Our next agenda item is the town manager's report.
Mr. Chairman and members of the Select Board, good evening. I hope that you all had a very happy Thanksgiving. In the interest of time, just a couple of updates, and then we'll get right into the action items. You have in your packet all of the warrants that were reviewed and approved since the board last met. In terms of the administrative update, the primary focus has been all things budget. The capital planning budget process is well underway. We just had another meeting this afternoon, and we'll be meeting next Tuesday and the following Tuesday, the December 8th and December 15th, to begin the review and recommendation process. So the committee has had all departments that have requests come before it already. So we're already moving into the next phase of that process. Additionally, all departmental budgets for FY22 are due this Friday, December 4th by noon. Once I receive all of those, I will, as we do every year, transmit that to the Select Board and to the Finance Committee. And then I will begin a series of meetings to meet with each of the departments involving the budget. Some of the departments, we will be meeting with all departments, but some of the challenges that we face moving forward through COVID-19 is the impacts that COVID-19 may have on departments moving into the next budget year and also into the spring and so forth. Though there appears to be hope on the horizon in things of getting this resolved, I think from a planning point of view and being realistic, we're looking at still a good 6 months into 2021, perhaps before things begin to stabilize. When the Select Board meets next, I'll have an update on the FY22 budget. You will also have had an opportunity to see the initial submissions, so we can start that discussion. Also, the plan is in January, like we did last year. Unfortunately, this time it will be on the Zoom platform, but we'll talk about also the first public session on the budget. It'll be coming up quickly in January. As the board is aware, last Thursday, it was exciting for the town to receive the $3.1 million MassWorks grant. Very exciting. This was our second bite at the apple, and we were successful. We have hit the ground running. We already had a meeting regarding this because we have to have the project bid and under contract no later than June 30th of 2021. So this project will move forward quickly. It will really transform the infrastructure of West Main Street. As you all know, it will replace the water main going down Rogers Ave under the railroad tracks, under Scully Road, and towards the Verbic Gate. In doing that replacement of the water main, of course, West Main Street, it will involve sidewalks and streetscape improvement plus the utility improvements. Also on Scully Road, it will involve not only the new water main, but the improvements to Scully Road, the widening of Scully Road, as well as some other improvements that we looked at and the board is aware of from back in 2018. The key to moving forward was securing this grant, which we're pleased that we have. So we will keep the board updated on that project, and obviously we'll be coming to you in the near future for approval of the contract as we move forward. If you haven't had a chance yet, maybe you probably have, but all the holiday lights are up on the Rotary Christmas tree along Main Street. So again, a special thanks to Miss Antonellis and also to the residents of Ayer who have support this and the board, as well as some of our ongoing sponsors. We sadly, as probably no surprise due to COVID-19, the holiday stroll and having Santa Claus at Town Hall to meet with the kids, we were unable to do. However, stay tuned. In addition to the lights, we are going to expand upon the ice sculptures, and there'll be more information coming out on that. And the Parks Department is doing a new project with decorating snowmen and trees along their new perimeter park. So again, I'm trying to keep the spirit and moving forward through this season. In terms of, that's pretty much on the administrative update. Again, mostly the focus has been on the budget. In terms of the COVID-19 update, things remain largely as a status quo, as the board is aware. The town of Ayer, based on the recent DPH map, if you follow that, is currently yellow. And things remain status quo. No new real information at this time. We remain in good preparedness state in terms of PPE. All of our personnel, there have been no infections over this whole time, so that is positive. The emergency management team, as I mentioned under the fire chief, is revising the shelter plan to take into account COVID-19 in the event that we have to activate the town's shelter plan. We continue to meet weekly updates just to touch base on COVID-19, and as cases is the national and state and regional trend has been obviously an increase. We just are staying the course, as I talked to Dr. Malone, as they are up at the regional school district. So status quo is not necessarily a bad thing in the sense as we continue to move forward. In terms of action items, I do have some appointments for consideration this evening. The first one is I hereby recommend that the select board appoint Miss Lois Bisson of Ayer to the Cultural Council for an unexpired term until June 30th of 2021.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
I have no problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I have no questions. I'll make a motion to appoint Lois Bisson to the Ayer Cultural Council for an unexpired term until June 30th, 2021.
Seconded.
Okay. Board Member Hood, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board Member Livingston, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the chair says aye. And the appointment is passed.
I also recommend that the select board appoint Miss Marianne Cooper of Ayer to the Cultural Council for an unexpired term until June 30th of 2022.
I'll make a motion that the select board appoint Marianne Cooper to the Cultural Council for an unexpired term until June 30th, 2022.
Second.
Okay, Board Member Livingston, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board Member Hood, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the chair says aye. The appointment is made. And then, sorry.
And then lastly, I hereby recommend, in consultation with the Historical Commission, that the select board appoint Miss Margaret Durand of Ayer to the Historical Commission for an unexpired term until June 30th of 2021.
Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
I'll make a motion that the select board appoint Margaret Durand to the Historical Commission for an unexpired term until June 30th, 2021.
Seconded.
Board Member Hood, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board Member Livingston,
Aye.
how do you vote? And the chair says aye. And the appointment is forward, approved.
Thank you. The next action item is a town council disclosure for an intermunicipal agreement with the town of Westford. Recently, as the board is aware, the new Ayer fire engine has arrived here in Ayer. And on recommendation of Chief Johnston, the old fire engine is still functional. And the challenge is we don't have the garage space at the Ayer fire station for both engines. So Chief Johnston contacted his counterpart, the Westford Fire Chief, and they have a new station in Westford and they have room. And they would be willing to garage our old engine, and we still retain ownership of that engine, and we could still use that engine in the event of the appropriate emergency. And also with it garaged in Westford in the event that there's an appropriate emergency situation where they could use that engine. So with that said, obviously we want to put together an intermunicipal agreement between the two towns so everybody is covered, if you will, and protected. I've talked to my counterpart, the town manager in Westford, and the chief to his counterpart, and everybody is on board. We want to put together the intermunicipal agreement and come back to this board to have you review and approve it, and Westford would do the same. There's no monetary component to the intermunicipal agreement, but it's more to explain and codify, if you will, this arrangement. We both have KP Law as town council. So KP Law under state law and under ethics is required to disclose that to both towns. In other words, they're representing us and they're representing Westford. And some of you may recall we had this when we did the intermunicipal agreement with Groton for the sewer extension. They also have KP Law. So for the purposes of tonight, it's twofold. One is the public disclosure of that relationship, which has been made. And secondly, respectfully requesting that the board vote to consent to town council to represent us on this IMA. Now, that doesn't involve a lot of legal work, and there's no question or concern that town council obviously will represent our interests in that. So the first step would be a vote from the board to just consent to town council representing us, meaning in the development of the document. Obviously, it's going to come back, the IMA, in a public meeting to you for review and consideration.
I don't see it as a problem. Like you mentioned, we didn't have a problem with it when we did the sewer extension with Groton. So I think it just makes it easier, actually.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have any questions or problems.
Neither did I.
I have a question.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
How many intermunicipal agreements does Ayer have?
Mr. Chairman, through you, Sarah, and I can, let me follow up just to verify, but we have an intermunicipal agreement with the town of Groton over the sewer extension. There is an intermunicipal agreement between the town of Ayer and Shirley for the regional dispatch. And that's actually going to be coming before the board for renewal within the next month. This would be the intermunicipal agreement for the garaging of the fire engine in Westford. We have intermunicipal aid agreements through the fire department. It's not quite the same on this. And let me just check, because some of these may predate the time I've been here. I can look to see if those are the ones that come to mind, but there could be another one we can check.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so is there a motion? Somebody want to make a motion on this?
I'll make a motion that the select board agree to consent to town council's KP Law representation of the town of Ayer and the town of Westford regarding the proposed intermunicipal agreement.
Seconded?
Okay, Board Member Hood, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board Member Livingston, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the chair says aye.
Great, thank you. So as I mentioned, very shortly, we'll be coming back with the draft agreement for your review in discussion. The last two items, I have action items, I'm actually going to turn over to the Assistant Town Manager, Ms. Antonellis, which is the 2021 license renewals, and she prepared the memo related to that. And the final item of the night, which is the 128 Washington Street commitment of the tax lien. And I'll turn that over through the chair to Ms. Antonellis for those two items.
Thank you, Robert. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening,
So
Carly.
standard practice, like we do every year, renewing licenses for 2021. As you remember, at the last meeting, you reduced the rates by 75%. I've gotten a lot of good feedback from all of our business owners, and they thank you. And they really said it's helpful in this year, especially with COVID issues. So it's pretty much the same list from years past, but I did put a note, Carlin's is not going to be renewing their liquor license or any license. I believe they're going to be closing in 2021.
Oh.
They've been closed since COVID, and they don't plan on reopening.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah, it is.
That's been a staple in Ayer for years.
Yeah, the package store will stay open. He did renew that, but not Carlin's. So that's the only major one of note so far. I've collected about 45% of the fees so far, and folks have till December 21st. And as usual, if we could just put in the motion like we do, approval contingent upon they've satisfied all state and local requirements, which are listed in your memo as far as what they need to provide, like liquor liability insurance, any establishment with a Section 12 license, which is a bar restaurant, the fire department inspects every year. So we work with the fire department once they give us the sign off, so we can, and they're all paid up, we can start releasing the licenses. And unfortunately, though we're in COVID, you still will have to sign all the licenses this year. I'm hoping to have those done this week, and I'll email you, and I'll have them here over the weekend. You can come in at your leisure and sign away. With the approval of the list. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I don't have many questions.
No questions from me.
I don't have any questions, but I have to commend Carly, how much she's improved this process over the years from where it was. It's much cleaner. So
I would definitely echo that, Selectman Livingston. She has modernized the whole thing. And also, to stress what Ms. Antonellis, what Carly mentioned, we have received an enormous amount of positive feedback from the small business community that the board reduced those license fees by 75%. So I just want to stress that again, that we've received a lot of positive feedback and appreciation to the board for doing that. So thank you.
Okay. Does anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make
this one, Janice.
I know it's like Scott and I start making eye contact, like which one's
It's hard in Zoom because usually there's the eye contact across the table and we don't have that.
I know it's like we both kind of like inside each other. Okay, let's see. I make a motion that the select board approve the 2020 license renewal as laid out in the packet, as long as all local state laws have been met.
I will second.
Okay. Board Member Livingston, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board Member Hood, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the chair says aye. All right.
Okay, so the next item is going back in the time machine to 2017 relating to 128 Washington Street. As you'll remember, the town had, there was a Board of Health violations issued for violations of the state sanitary code. The town of Ayer spent over $20,000 remedying the very dangerous situation over there. And then the house is already in foreclosure. So what happens now is this lien was recorded at the Middlesex County Registry of Deeds. In a normal sale, this would be found on the title search, the deed research, and this lien would get paid at closing. This is a unique situation where there's not enough equity in the home and the mortgage company is actually losing some funding. They're doing a short sale. So the Board of Assessors has asked us to commit this to their tax bill because it's kind of going through a different process. This ensures that the town is paid first to recoup our money. So the original cost was about $22,000 plus a recording fee of $124, and then 6% annual interest, which comes up through the end of the year to just over $27,600. So if we can just, I'm respectfully asking the board to vote to commit the entire lien over to the property tax rolls. And that will be transmitted to the Board of Assessors tomorrow.
Any questions?
No questions.
Okay. Okay. A motion?
I'll make a motion that the select board vote to commit the lien of $27,600.75 on the property of 128 Washington Street to the property tax rolls.
Seconded.
Board Member Hood, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board Member Livingston, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the chair says aye.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Carly.
Members of the board, and thank you, Carly. That completes the town manager report for this evening. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Robert. So then I guess just the only thing under the new business would be if we're able to reschedule our meeting. I think I had asked Robert and he checked the schedule and it looks like that week is pretty full at Town Hall. Is that correct, Robert?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, we checked, and the week of the 14th it's like, I think the week of the last meetings for the year. It's pretty tight as far as availability. The other thing is we've been checking with departments. It's still early yet as far as action items or priority items for the board's review and approval. And there is the possibility that we may not need to have a second meeting in December for the purpose of action items. So I just put that out there. So I think when we look, Carly, the 14th is the Board of Health. The 15th would be us. The 16th is the Zoning Board of Appeals. And then What's Thursday?
17th is the Conservation Commission.
Conservation. So it's a tight week.
What about Monday, the 21st?
That could work. It's available.
Yeah, that's the first day of winter. That would work.
That would work for me. If
Well,
that
now
works for
we're
you
going to
guys.
get 10 feet. So, you know.
Well, there you said it. Fine. We'll blame you, Janice.
So do we want to just go ahead and schedule it for the 21st? What, same time, 6 p.m.?
That would be good. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, guys. All right. And so I guess that brings us to the approval of meeting minutes.
I didn't see any issues with them.
I didn't have any either.
I'm sorry?
I didn't have any changes or edits to them either.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve meeting minutes of November 2nd, 2020 as presented.
Seconded?
Board Member Hood, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Board Member Livingston, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Meeting minutes are approved.
Okay, and I just want to let you know too, real quick, that Mark Wetzel will be bringing over that change order for you guys to sign. It needs signature by the board. He should have it to me by tomorrow or Thursday, but I'll let you know. And then I'm, like I said, planning to have the licenses done by Friday, so you can come in and sign when you're available. But I'll certainly email you and keep you in the loop.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, we have completed the agenda.
So I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I will second.
Board Member Livingston, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board Member Hood, how do you vote?
Enthusiastic aye.
The chair votes aye, and we are adjourned. Thank you guys very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night, everybody.